artificial intelligence. Some say it will save the world. Others say it will take all our jobs. There is a truth in between. Let's speak about it. AI without the PhD, because somebody has to translate this stuff.
Hi and welcome everyone. This is a new episode of my podcast AI Without the PhD, because somebody has to translate this stuff. Last episode was the first one and we spoke about the graveyard of AI projects, and today I want to cover a pretty different topic. I want to speak about AI agents because, to be honest, a couple of years ago, not a couple of years, a year ago, when I spoke about an agent, everyone thought about James Bond, Johnny English, some guy dressed up in a suit with a black tie, working for MI6, CIA, FBI, whatever. So nowadays everything is an agent, and I want to discuss what they are, what they aren't, and why everyone suddenly has one. And well, this is a pretty interesting thing because everything now is an agent. So your customer service portal is an agent, your chat is an agent, workflow automation is an agent. And there are coaches on LinkedIn and Instagram, and they say, hey, join my class and I show you how to build an AI agent in just 1 hour. And to be honest, for me as an IT professional, this is not impressive at all, because what you call an AI agent today, we called a microservice 5 years ago. We called it a rules engine, we called it a batch jobs, we called it scripts, we called it workflows. So we had already a lot of words for that. And once in a while in technology, you have to rebrand the stuff, put a bit of fresh paint on it as you would do it on your house, because after some time, well, there's some wear and tear to the work and to the technology, and so you have to change it. And currently, if you code everything in an AI, nice AI color, it's pretty likely that you get a funding of money from the CTO office, from the CIO office, from the chief innovation officer, the head of whatever. And therefore now it's called AI agent. So let's speak a bit about that. And so what does an agent do? So an agent gets a mission in real life as well as in IT. So your agent gets a mission and a special task to do, and it makes a plan how to solve this task, and then it starts to gather information, change the strategy if needed. If the agency comes to a dead end, change strategy, starts over and over again. So at this and at some point it accomplish the objectives, and then it's done. So let's take a pretty simple example. So as of now, you see in my background, I'm on the beautiful island of Madeira. And when I want to come here, I need to book something. So I go to my personal handcrafted and super fancy booking agent, say, hey, book me a holiday on Madeira Island for less than 1,500 euros. So actually it's peak time, so it's a pretty challenging task, but outside of the season, it's pretty doable. So what the agent does now, the agent starts drafting a plan, knows that I'm living in Middle East, knows that I need an accommodation there, and starts first for searching flights, searching for flight dates, and after it locked in the flight dates with a best price ratio, it starts to look for accommodation. So it goes to the hotels, to the booking channels, to the aggregators, to Airbnb, and starts to compare the options regarding to my need. And as I was pretty open in my question, I just said, book me a holiday on Madeira Island for less than 1,500 euros. It will find some way. So if I say I need a house with a pool, I need a hotel with a jacuzzi and a spa and 5 stars, then the task gets pretty explicit, and it needs way more of work. But at that point, I just said less than 1,500 euros. This is my constraint. I didn't even say for 5 days, for 10 days, for 14 days. I just give a price limitation. So it comes back with recommendation, and that's what an agent does. Something with a goal that fixes a sequence of instructions and ends up with something. So what most agents actually are. So most business agents are simply an LLM connected to tools inside a workflow. That's it. That's all the magic. And that's why I say it's not impressive if someone shows up on Instagram or LinkedIn and say, hey, I built a sales agent in 1 hour in my live webinar. Yeah, to be honest, I can do it in 45 minutes if needed. So there's nothing impressive in there. So that's it. So the customer asks something. Let's take another example. So where's my package? So I ordered something at Amazon, and now I'm waiting for my delivery, and the delivery is maybe delayed, or I expected it earlier and it's still on the way. So I go to a chat and say, where's my package? And what the system does is it goes to the order database, because first it needs to figure out what is my package. Then it checks the shipping provider, retrieves the tracking information, and writes a response. So technically, it's a database lookup, it's an API call, it's an LLM getting the instruction to draft a nice answer with the intelligence that was gathered from the database and the API call. Useful? Absolutely. But magic, there's no magic inside. It's not Mission Impossible. So the agents are not a Mission Impossible style agent. It's closer to, if the customer asks this question, perform these 3 actions, and that's perfect fine. And that's why the guys can do it in 1 hour, because it's simple than that. So what makes something an agent? My practical definition, and sorry, I will read it because I'm pretty proud of it, and I'm not sure if I can get it from my mind. An agent is a software that shows actions in order to achieve a goal. The important word here is choose, because not every step in an agent is predefined. The system has some freedom to decide what needs to be done next to achieve the objective. And that's maybe the difference to a rule engine. A rule engine executes a set of predefined steps and choose based on the previous steps if it goes that side or that side of a decision flow. The agent has a bit more freedom. So it's a bit more there is a bit more autonomy in there, and this is where it comes also to the problem that agent behavior is maybe not deterministic. So it can happen that the agent choose one path and another path for the very same question or the same request. So this is what you have to keep in mind. So what I see in the field are 3 levels of agents. So not 50 shades of agents. Technically, you can narrow it down to maybe 3 levels. So the first one is the assistant agent. Summarize me this document. So it's just an AI response. There's nothing planning, no actions, no tools involved. You just go there and it picks up the document, it put the document to an LLM and gets a nice summary out of it. So it's mostly conversation. And this is where the traditional chatbots live, to be honest. It's maybe not summarized document, but I ask a question, it goes back to a knowledge database and gives you the answer in a natural way. So level 2 is the tool user. So find my latest electricity bill. That's a bit more tricky, because now the system needs to search files. This needs to maybe query a database, retrieve the information, and then formulate an answer in a natural way. So there's a bit of research in it. It needs to figure out what is the latest, what is electricity bill, because I may have a water bill as well in my file system, and yeah, it has to pick the right one. It has to identify the right one. So this is so-called agents in, it's some style of agent, still not Mission Impossible style agent, but it's a bit more sophisticated than the first level. And they are incredibly useful. I use them myself, so I have a couple of apartments rented out, and I throw everything in. And if a tenant asks me, hey, can you send me the latest auxiliary bill, I just go there. Or if I want to check if the tenant pays the rent, I go and say, hey, did all tenants pay the rent for last month? And then it goes to a database where all my bank transactions are in and pulls up and gives me the response. And then I can push that further. So if someone is not paying the rent, I can say, okay, please, can you send a warning letter, a warning notice to this tenant? And then it's the next step in a more manual tool style, because the first agent is giving me the information, and now I ask another agent to draft me a nice warning letter so the tenant gets reminded to pay the rent. But this is some kind of manual workflow. And then we have the level 3, the goal-oriented agents. So this is like reduce customer churn. Well, would it be that easy? I think a lot of companies would pay a lot of money to get those agents. But this is an example. Now the things become more interesting, because reduce customer churn needs now analyzing the data, identifying patterns, generate reports, proposing actions, monitor the result that come out of that actions, and so on and so forth. So this is a way more sophisticated way of going down that road. And at the end, after I identified actions, I found pattern, I identified actions, I execute the actions, I have reports about how efficient my actions are. And now I come to the point that I may have to adapt my recommendations because user behavior changed. This is a typical data drift scenario where you have also to identify the drift of the data because user behavior changed over time. So then you have multiple decisions in that flow. You have multiple steps going down there. It's a way longer time horizon because maybe churn is after 90 days, after 180 days. Maybe you have yearly contracts and you don't want the customer to churn after a year. So you have way longer time horizons you need to cover. And this is where research gets really, really exciting. But this is where reality also gets really messy because, as said, customer change their behavior. The data is maybe not in a format that is usable. The agent can go completely off bound. So you have to monitor and you have to guardrail the agent as well. So that are the level of agents. I see the 3 levels of agents. So if we come to the question, how do I actually build an agent? And I really want to uncover the myth that this is super complex and only certain guys on LinkedIn and Instagram and YouTube are capable of building that agent in 1 hour or 2 hours, which is, again, completely nonsense. It's completely nonsense, and it's no myth behind. It's not Mission Impossible style. So I want to remove that magic. And so first of all, you need to identify your things. It's like cooking a soup or something like that. You need to prepare your ingredients. And for a good agent, you have 4 ingredients. So first of all, you need the brain. This is your language model. It can be GPT, can be Claude, can be Gemini, can be whatever you like. Whatever you feel, try them. Some are better for some use cases than others, or some are more useless than others. However you want to see it, it's not that complicated. Second thing, you need a goal. And this is where it becomes tricky because you have to formulate the goal and you have to identify it and you have to find the business need and you have to identify everything like that. So a goal is what we're trying to achieve: booking a flight, finding an invoice, answer a customer question, whatever you like there, you have to formulate the goal. So third, the tools. Now it become interesting. So what need the agent capable of? Does it need to access a database? Does it need to search the web? Does it need to send an email? Does it need to create a calendar entry? Does it need to call APIs? So for this sales funnel magicians building in 1 hour, it's pretty easy. So language model, I choose a GPT. For the goal is I want customers an email sent to the customer. When the customer reply, I want to check my calendar, offer some time slots, and when the customer answers, I want to book this, so I need to create a calendar entry. So there are 2 integrations with my calendar. The first is finding a free spot, and the second one is booking the preferred slot. So there's no magic at all, and all of the LLMs can can extract those information straight out of an email context. So someone says, hey, I want to book a meeting. I go screen the calendar, say I have these 3 time slots, and someone says, okay, Thursday, 12 p.m. is fine. So I can extract this again, create the calendar entry, push it in. There is no magic in there. So without tools, it's just talking. So you will need tools. If you have an agent that is not using any tool, it's more like the friendly uncle that shows up for the family gathering and chew your ears off the whole evening by just talking. So please be aware, you need a tool. Otherwise, it's just a talking engine. And fourth, the memory. And I really want to stress this because the memory is one of the most important part when we speak about agents. So the agent may need to know what happened so far, especially if you have a conversational agent. So you have some part of conversation, you have some tools looking something up, like my parcel example. So you also need the memory to figure out what still need to be done, because you will get your results in portions. You will get partial updates and you have to bring them together to give a full answer to the customer demand. So, and this is all what you need. So the memory, what happened so far, what data I collected already, and what are the next steps. So, and if you have all those 4 steps, congratulations, you have your agent. And this can be done if you know what you do. So the first agent is definitely not built in an hour or 2, but if you know what you're doing, you can build them in 2 or 3 hours. The main point is, or the main target, or the main complicated thing is figuring out what really deserves an agent and what is just agent for the sake of having an agent. I think this is a way harder choice than building those agents. So yeah, let's wrap this up speaking a bit about connecting those agents, because what I see meanwhile pretty often is that people start to connect those agents, which is in general not a bad idea, having an agent triggering an agent. But what the people do is they do hard-coded HTTP connections, which is pretty simple on the one hand. On the other hand, it's pretty horrible, because we learned for 20 years that monoliths are not a good idea. And what they built technically by just using HTTP connections is they build monolith. Mostly because they are unaware, mostly because they start with programming at that point and they don't went to the 20 years of experience others like me have. So I learned it the hard way. As soon as you do tight coupling, you run into a lot of issues. So loose coupling is way more efficient when it comes to software and microservices. And as I mentioned already earlier, agent is a fancy microservice with a fancy title. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good wrap up for now, how to build an agent. I think I will do another episode speaking about why agent may fail, what you shouldn't do with agents. I think this topic of an agent deserves definitely a second episode, because we are now running towards 20 minutes and I want to keep it condensed and I don't want to give you a 40 minutes lecture. I'm pretty good in doing that, but I try to restrain myself to the 20 minutes. So I think 20 more minutes, a second episode would be really needed here. So the easiest way to cut through the hype is asking one question: what decision can this thing make on its own? And I think this is the most important question when it comes down to agent. And the answer, if the answer is none, you probably have just the automation, just the workflow. So if your agent doesn't make a decision on its own, congratulations, you build a rule engine. But you don't want to have a rule engine. So if the answer is a few, then it's probably an agent, but maybe it's just a more sophisticated rule engine. And if the answer is this piece of software can make all decisions on its own, then I would probably very, very nervous. So there is a sweet spot between guardrailing your agent and give him the freedom to find a solution to the objective. And this fine-tuning, this is a very fine-graded decision between give all the freedom and narrowing it too tight. So if you narrow it too tight, you have a rules engine. If you give it too much freedom, you have a problem. And somewhere in between, there's the truth. So with that, I want to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed this this podcast episode about agents. I will definitely do a second one. Until then, have a great day.